President Donald Trump said Thursday a deal providing the U.S. with access to Ukraine's rare earths is back on, and again close to being signed. One of the things we are doing is signing a deal very shortly with respect to rare earths with Ukraine, he said in the White House East Room. According to Assosicted Press, Trump's comment came during an event marking plans to shutter the Education Department. He said he'd signed a separate order increasing critical mineral production domestically and overseas. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelenskyy came to the White House last month to sign a critical minerals deal. But he left without signing after a contentious Oval Office meeting. The Trump administration has been making the case that tightening U.S. Ukraine economic ties through an agreement that gives the U.S. access to valuable mineral deposits in Ukraine will give Russia pause about taking malign action against Ukraine in the future.
Well, thank you very much. And moments ago, I also signed an executive order to dramatically increase production of critical minerals and rare earths. It's a big thing in this country. And as you know, we're also signing agreements in various locations to unlock rare earths and minerals and lots of other things all over the world. But in particular, Ukraine, we're doing very well with regard to Ukraine and Russia. And one of the things we are doing is signing a deal very shortly with respect to rare earths with Ukraine, which they have tremendous value in rare earth, and we appreciate that. And we spoke yesterday with, as you know, President Putin and President Zelenski, and we would love to see that come to an end, and I think we're doing pretty well in that regard. So hopefully we could save thousands of people a week from dying. That's what it's all about. They're dying so unnecessarily, and I believe we'll get it done. We'll see what happens, but I believe we'll get it done. Today we take a very historic action that was 45 years in the making.
Russian troops in the battle for Sudza of Kursk region used blue ribbons to disguise themselves as Ukrainian servicemen. A story about this was aired on the Russian state-owned Channel 1. A couple of days before the assault, an important package arrives. Blue armbands, like the enemy's, for camouflage, the story says. Notably, using the enemy's uniform or insignia to deceive during combat is considered a war crime. Such tactics are prohibited by the Geneva Convention. It can be assumed that the Russians disguised themselves as the Ukrainian armed forces to mislead not only the Ukrainians but also the local residents of Kursk region. In this way, the Russians intended to discredit the Ukrainian forces in order to accuse them of war crimes later. After the return of Sudza, Russian propagandists began to accuse the Ukrainian armed forces of rolling a steamroller over the city, leaving not a single building in the city intact. The truth is that the destruction in the settlement appeared precisely during the Russians' attempts to return it under their control. The Russian armed forces have been bombing Sudza with aerial bombs and artillery for the past 6 months. Military expert Yan Medvedev drew attention to this on Telegram. The Ukrainian armed forces captured Sudza in 2 days with virtually no resistance. I wonder who rolled over the city and destroyed every house in it over the next 7 months. Did the Ukrainians bomb themselves? The expert wrote. Recall, North Korean troops have played a pivotal role in Russia's recent advances against Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region. Kiev has assessed a move aimed at cutting off logistical supplies and isolating Ukrainian soldiers. DPRK units participating in the latest Russian counteroffensive comes after Pyongyang reportedly deployed thousands more soldiers to the region to reinforce its troops after suffering casualties. The situation in the Sumy and Kursk regions is difficult. Andriy Kovalenko, the head of the Center for Countering Disinformation under Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, said, North Korean troops are storming actively, advancing in columns, practically running across the fields. Kovalenko assessed, adding that the Russian military is throwing everything they have at Ukrainian positions. Multiple Ukrainian soldiers reportedly told the New York Times that Russia's combat success stemmed from the use of North Korean soldiers, who often outnumber Ukrainian forces 50-6, and fiber optic drones resistant to jamming.
За пару дней до штурма приходит важная посылка. Синие повязки, как у врага, для маскировки.
Гуманитарка для операции. Ходить с синими будем.
А, серьезно, в синих повязках, да?
Да, в синих идем.
На кадрах с Путлера никто не поверит, что россияне зашли. Потому что вы будете...
Нет, на касках не будем. Чтобы с коптера видно было, где...
Experts say that for a common victory, Ukraine must inflict 3 times more losses on Russia. Back in December 2023, the head of the Estonian Ministry of Defense stated that in order to defeat the Russian Federation in 2024, the Ukrainian armed forces must eliminate about 100,000 enemy soldiers. Forbes reports. According to the results of last year, the Ukrainian armed forces killed and wounded more than 200,000 soldiers of the Russian armed forces, which is twice as much as Tallinn considered necessary. According to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Zelenski, in 10 weeks of 2025, Putin's army lost up to 100,000 servicemen on the battlefield. According to the Estonian theory of victory, Ukraine can defeat Russia by destroying more well-trained troops than the Russian military training system can replace, thereby initiating a gradual military collapse. Military experts say the Kremlin can train 130,000 new recruits every 6 months, but not all of them go straight to the front. If the Kremlin only trains 40,000 new recruits every 6 months, it will force Russia to throw untrained soldiers into battle. As a result, the quality of Russian forces will deteriorate. From 2022 to 2023, the Ukrainian armed forces sent an average of 172,000 enemy soldiers to the next world every year. By the end of 2024, 210,000 of Putin's soldiers were killed and wounded. So why hasn't the Russian military collapsed? The answer may be that it is collapsing, but very slowly. Analysts recall that the year-long offensive of the Russian armed forces in Donbass stopped in February. Or perhaps it is because Russia is finally running out of well-trained troops and, as a result, losing the ability to mount meaningful offensive actions on a large scale, as analysts in Tallinn had predicted. However, the Ukrainian armed forces also suffer losses. As a result, the situation on the battlefield will again reach a dead end. There will be a picture of 2 exhausted armies inflicting softer and softer blows. Such a dead end would ultimately benefit Russia, Frontelligence Insight explained. This is because Ukraine has 38 million people, while Russia has 144 million. Ukraine must weaken the Russian army faster than Russia weakens the Ukrainian army. At present, the ratio of losses is in Ukraine's favor, but not enough, given the large human reserves of the Russian Federation. Losses on the battlefield should be in the ratio of 1-3 and 1-1.86. By killing, maiming or forcing to desert 3 Russians for every soldier they lose, the Ukrainians could deplete Russia's most important resource, its people. To achieve such results, Ukraine will continue to need military support from the West.